Thank you, Dr. Yoon. It's my great honor to just participate in this conference since it's opening ceremony and it's my presentation. And lastly, I'm just having duty to moderate for second session of our conference. And as always seen, the theme of our session is just building solidarity through supranational cooperation. As organizers just talking to me, just to keep the time, it's like we'll have to get roughly 1 hour of our session with the all 4 speakers and 3 panelists. And roughly an hour after hour, and 4:30, we'll have our discussion, including our 2 sessions, session 1 and 2. And as we all know, our dinner will be served in nearby of this our university. So we have to just leave to that restaurant by walking. So we have to just finish all of our session at 4:45 for walking to our dinner venue. So as I nominated as a moderator, I'll just asking for my speakers just having keep your time as like in roughly 10 to 15 minutes each, and we'll have just I'll just remind you just before the end of your time to have to finish. As in other panelists, roughly 5 to 10 minutes each. Okay, and may I just invite our first speaker, my friend Dr. Paisagdang Sanlundu, the National University of Mongolia, and he will just give us the presentation of the state of the third neighbor policy of Mongolia during Trump 2 area. Dr. Paisagdang, it's your floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Professor Zolpa, for inviting to the speaker. And my presentation is State of Third Neighbor Policy of Mongolia during Trump era, which means during this era. And as an introduction, I would like to say that international relation is very very dynamic environment, so we can't expect something in how to say or it's not planned as we used to, and there are a lot of policymakers and leaders of other countries, and the higher the which country is the power, that means the countries which are very influential in the world, those countries have leaders. We can't predict it, what kind of policy it conduct or something like that. And for that reason, first of all, I would like to say that third neighbor policy of Mongolia, it's not just a policy. We need to approach to this issue as a concept. This is like doctrine, or it's some kind of state, or third neighbor policy is very unique for the world. It's only matters with Mongolia. No other countries, even though some country in the world can say that, oh, we have third neighbor policy, but it can't be put in same level as Mongolia. So therefore, I need to explain something about Mongolia's foreign policy, and after that, what is third neighbor policy, And why is that third neighbor policy is like can affect by today's Trump administration's policy, etc. So Mongolia, modern Mongolian foreign policy, it starts from 1911, when we first declared our independence from Manchu dynasty, Manchu Empire, not China, Manchu Empire. China is after that. We have a lot of discussion about that. It's a separate discussion. And as you know that Manchu Empire also British commonly, in general, they call it China, but it's wrong. It's Manchu Empire. Manchu is not Chinese empire. It's not Chinese nationals. It's Manchus are separate Tungusic nomadic people, and those are separate things. So first in 1911, we had declared our independence from Manchu Empire, and after that we had foreign policy in order to, the main goal of this foreign policy is to be recognized by foreign powers, colonial powers. And this is our first goal. And that was the Bogd Khans, the first monarchy in modern history of Mongolia, this kind of thing. And after that, unfortunately, there began in 1921 socialist foreign policy. We were part of the socialist camp, Soviet ally, and so we need to have some kind of socialist, Marxist foreign policy. And why we saying that unfortunate? Because geography rules all things. So we didn't have sovereign foreign policy. Now from the 1990s, Mongolia has its sovereign independent foreign policy. So geographic location is very important for us, for other countries also. The main foreign policy is derived from geographic location, whether it's United States, Russia, China, Korea, Japan, or Mongolia, it's the same, I think. So therefore, Mongolia is located in the heart of Asia, but it's not exactly Central Asia and Northeast Asia. But economically, we want to be and is in part of Northeast Asia. It's good for our development. It fits our interest. So therefore, but in purely geographic location, we are heart of Asia. So Mongolia is landlocked country between two big powers. And many researchers, scholars say that, okay, there are a lot of landlocked countries and so on, but we are between two neighbors, and we are far from open sea. Under the open sea, we say it because our foreign policy is mostly, our interest is economic interest. We have economic interest. So as you know that we are not the member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We are observer at this organization because this is not economic trade, not economic. So this is not fit, like fully fit to our interest. We want to have economic cooperation, and somewhat our efforts are just ended. We wanted to join APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, but unfortunately they closed it for new membership, so etc. So and any possible integration we want to have, but unfortunately it's still geography is the matter. And Mongolia is strategically important for powers that have interest in the region, in this region. So other powers, we want to attract investment, but those powers, those countries say that, okay, no, strategically you are important for us, not economically. But this is not for our benefit. So this is another issue. Mongolia's location makes it to have third neighbors. So the term understanding of third neighbor is derived from the location. It's not our just choice or something like that. It's a very unique self and sovereign thing. So the issue of third neighbor is unique and it applies only to Mongolia. In 1912, Japan was so-called third neighbor. But at that time, we don't call it or name it third neighbor. It's just they have interest or something like that. At the times of rivalry between Russia and China over Mongolia, Japan wanted to penetrate to this region. And you know that there was a rivalry among them. So after that, in 1990s, U.S. Secretary James Baker proposed the term third neighbor, and in 2011, the amendment to the foreign policy concept, the third neighbor was included. So after that, what third neighbor is challenging for us is that unpredictable U.S. policy can cause instability in the region, which can cause challenge to Mongolia's foreign policy. Cause also imbalance between two neighbors in Mongolia. China is now much stronger than Russia, which also have imbalance. And this trend will go further and weaken the third neighbor policy. So this the situation is in Asia Pacific can affect to Mongolia's foreign policy. So it in the result, it can weaken the third neighbor policy because most of the third neighbor policy depends on the third neighbor countries. A cooperation between Mongolia and US could weaken. For example, we have education cooperation, but now Fulbright and Humphreys are permanently maybe closed. And in defense, for example, we have a cooperation with the United States, and how in the result, how it will come, it depends also. It's a very fragile issue. So in conclusion, Mongolia's foreign policy derives from its geographic location. Therefore, the third neighbor policy is an inalienable part of Mongolia's foreign policy. So third neighbor policy is not only just a part of foreign policy, but also the guarantee of democracy and sovereignty in foreign policy. World power like US, it's not only supporter, promoter of democracy in Mongolia, but also the leading country in third neighbor policy. So if US policy here is becoming weaker, then others like Korean and Japanese policy also, it depends somehow from the US as a leader in this policy. So that's my main point. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Dr. Baysıgla. Of course, it was very crucial issues of Mongolian foreign policy, which is including all of those historical background and current situation and future of this third neighbor policy of Mongolia in time of the Trump II area. Thank you. And I'm just inviting our next speaker in the podium is Mrs. Bemhand Lugusharov. She is just now she is just representing the Institute of Asian Studies, and her topic is just Trump II implications for the U.S. and Mongolian strategic partnerships. Thank you and welcome. And the floor is yours, Mrs. Bemhand.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Especially welcome our distinguished guest who is coming to Mongolia to attend this wonderful event. And also Mongolia is so open to organize various conferences here in Mongolia because Mongolia has tried to implement so-called conference diplomacy here. That's why we organize so many conferences, including Northeast Asia, the Ulaanbaatar dialogue on Northeast Asian security, as well as so many like foreign kind of conferences here. And also Mongolia is so committed to implement various strategy, which is actually trying to be more constructive, more innovative in order to mitigate all negative risks surrounded by us. So since our previous presenters already mentioned about the Mongolia's third neighbor policy, I will briefly talk about what is actually the Mongolian third neighbor policy. So my conclusion is that Mongolia's third neighbor policy is one of the most distinctive and innovative components of our foreign policy architecture. It is born out of our geographical necessity. It is both pragmatic survival strategy as also normative commitment to democratic values, sovereignty, and global engagement. This policy also reflects Mongolia's effort to balance its location between two authoritarian regimes by strong and multifaceted relations with the countries that are geographically distant and politically aligned. So as previous speakers mentioned, the concept, the term of the third neighbor policy was introduced by the then Secretary U.S. Then U.S. Secretary of State James Baker in 1990 during his visit in Mongolia. And since then, this policy, this symbolic gesture immediately resonated with Mongolian public and political elites, and the term not only merely rhetorical, but it also showed the Mongolia's new foreign policy trajectory, outward-looking, multilateral, rooted in democratic identity. Since the third neighbor. Since then, third neighbor policy has been formalized and consistently reaffirmed our core national documents, which are national security concept and foreign policy concept of Mongolia. And then giving the Mongolia's landlocked geographically and asymmetry in the power with the two neighbors, third neighbor policy acts as a geographical hedge. It mitigates a risk of overdependence, and it helps also preserve autonomy in foreign policy decisions. So, as you know, Mongolia is, as I mentioned before, surrounded by two authoritarian regimes. That's why here in Mongolia we always try to preserve our democracy with the help of our third neighbors. That's why we assume that the support of third neighbors are very essential for strengthening civil society, promoting free media, supporting democratic resilience. Also, Mongolian economy is very small. It's hugely dependent on trade with China and Russia. That's why third neighbor countries have played a vital role in diversifying Mongolian economic partners and helping build infrastructure, advance sustainable mining, expand trade in areas such as Kashmir, renewable energy, and tourism. And one of the most significant political outcomes of the third neighbor policy has been diversification of Mongolian strategic partners. In addition to our two immediate neighbors, Russia and China, we have developed strategic partnership with the United States, Japan, India, Germany, South Korea, and Kazakhstan. This diversification aligns with our non-alignment policy, which is actually explicitly stated in our constitution. And so Mongolia explicitly stated that it doesn't belong any military alliance and pursue independent foreign policy that values sovereignty, multilateral cooperation, and peaceful diplomacy. For Mongolia, strategic partnership is the highest form level of bilateral cooperation that we can have with other countries. So with the United States, we have a landmark moment occurred in 2029 when Mongolia became the 70th strategic partner of United States. Conversely, U.S. became the Mongolia's 50th strategic partner. This designation elevated our bilateral relations in many ways. So this formal recognition only raised Mongolian profile in Washington, but also solidified bipartisan support for our democracy and also our sovereignty under the Trump administration. So many of us know about what's the distinct features, specifics of the Trump foreign policy, since everyone mentioned before. That's why I will skip that part. But I would like to mention about the Mongolian strategic importance in terms of the Trump foreign policies, basically focus on strategic partnership competition with China, which actually initiated not just by Mr. Trump, but also previous president actually implementing that policy long before. So, as I mentioned, that in 2029, the President Batolk Haltma visited White House, and during that visit, we elevated our relations to strategic partnership, which is actually because Mongolia cannot join any military alliance. That's why strategic partnership is for us leverage to ensure our security, sovereignty, also ensuring our democratic resilience in such a harsh environment. So even though Mongolia is mentioned in the strategic documents produced by the Trump administration, but we still included that in the Pacific strategy, which actually introduced under this first term of Mr. Trump. And so we are trying to, during this, especially during this administration, this term of Trump, we would try to get some benefits from strategic decoupling from China, which could benefit us many ways, especially given our wealth of our mineral resources. We have several critical minerals, including rare earth elements. The world is now hungry of these rare earth elements. That's why we see that based on our minerals, we can actually play a certain role in terms of global supply chain, especially related to rare earth elements. And also we have some examples already occurred during the Trump administration as well. So we, Mongolia and in South Korea, US, we already started trilateral dialogue on critical raw materials already, and then that will also benefit us in Mongolia. And then South Korea promised to build the scientific research institute here in Mongolia, especially related to critical raw materials. That will also one of the potential that we can work together. As you know, Mongolia has a wealth of rare earth elements and other critically important materials. And so we have 5 to 6 deposits in rare earth elements. So one of the potential most promising and most ready project is Halzenburg deposit. So right now we have some public discussion how to utilize that deposit. And then of course there is some public backlash from our communities, especially rural local community. They are not so happy with development of that project. But the US still having interest in diversifying their its actually partners in terms of the rare earth elements and other critically important materials. So as you know, China is already dominant in that sector. So Mongolia can play here in supply chain as a democratic, reliable alternative for this rare element sector. But unfortunately, there is still risk. We have reduced U.S. aid. U.S. aid, Millennium Challenge Corporation project will implement until its end, but the USAID has closed in Mongolia, so which means that it has a lot of ripple effects on our civil society and in the resilience of our democracy. And then, of course, many, not just Mongolia, many like 100 countries are facing trade unpredictability because of this administration policy, especially this tariff on many countries, including Mongolia and South Korea. And then we, during the first administration of Trump, we proposed this Third Neighbor Trade Act, which is actually giving some free access to U.S. markets, especially U.S. Kashmir and wool market, but that act has been stalled. So I think Mongolia has a chance to play a certain role, especially in Kashmir and trade sector, because Mongolia is the second largest raw Kashmir producer. So we have like 45% of all Kashmir here in Mongolia, but also China has a very huge amount of tariff here. Maybe we can play a certain role to using, at least even though we have some tariffs, like 10% of tariffs equal with the other countries. So China's tariff is much more higher than us, so maybe that's the avenue that we can play on. And so, of course, because of this tariff, there is a lot of disruption in supply chains. Many like e-shops and platforms, they are looking for other alternatives. Maybe Mongolian Kashmir can be play a role. And then also I used to work at the Institute for Strategic Studies. That's why I always put some recommendation after my presentation. So I put some recommendations. So Mongolia should have more proactive, adaptive foreign policy. Of course, Mongolian foreign policy should be very open so that there is no some theories, constructive theories about the Mongolian foreign policy, and then also we should broaden our engagement with the U.S., especially. We just only focus on the executive sector of the U.S. That's why we should more strengthen congressional, state level think tank ties are very important because it plays a role in U.S. foreign policy decision making. So I propose that maybe we should have academic diplomacy besides the conference diplomacy. So we could have partnership with U.S. institutes, think tanks, universities, and also we should penetrate in policy networks such which have a lot of influence on U.S. foreign policy, Heritage Foundation, Brookings. All those institutes are very important. So I think this is very important. And then, so I conclude that Trump, this administration actually creates uncertainty. Same time, it also creates some opportunities for us that we can grab. And also Mongolia must balance strategic engagement, sovereignty, because in the end, Mongolian third neighbor policy is not against our neighbors, but it's actually trying to balance our the risks that actually comes out of our strategic location. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bemhant. Of course, it was very interesting to listen about the role of Mongolian third neighbor policy, and most important, the third neighbors in USA in time of Trump 2 areas. And those kind of strategic recommendations are very interesting, while we have just sharing all ideas to each other. Thank you for keeping time, as in I'm so appreciate for just on time. of your presentation. Okay, now I'm just going to invite in our next speaker from USA, Dr. Paulo Lebel Schrik, and he's right here. Yeah. Yes, yeah. He's just going to present us the very interesting topics, is like future of U.S. and China relations. Dr. Paulo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate the opportunity of being here today. I really thank this university for hosting the event. I recall that I was here in Mongolia in 2018 at this university. I was speaking in another building because I think it was the faculty of political science or international relations, so it was a different building. But I remember talking to the faculty and the students. And of course, Hankook University that has co-organized this event. So I'm really thanking all the organizers for allowing me to be here today. Let me be a little bit disruptive, if I can, by throwing some, as we would say, red meat to you. The United States and China are at war with each other, okay? And I use this, I don't try to be funny here. It is a war. It's an undeclared war, but it is war. And there's no other way to describe it. And by the way, it's not a war that the United States has declared on China. The Chinese Communist Party, throughout its history, in all its documents, both those of large distribution and internal documents, has consistently portrayed the United States of America an existential threat to China. The main existential threat that needs to be dealt with and destroyed. That's the objective of the Chinese Communist Party. You say, okay, well, all right, that's a political statement. What does it mean in practice? Maybe not much. You just say things and you don't really mean to do anything to implement those policies. Well, if we look at actions, the spying by China on the United States has massive proportions. Let me give you just a couple of examples. The hacking of the Office of Personnel Management, which basically in Washington, which gathers all the identities and personal data of all American government employees, hacked by China a few years ago. Millions of people are now in their hands, their lives, their names, their social security number, their tax status, their jobs, their responsibilities, all in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. This is years ago. Industrial espionage, normal. Theft of intellectual property rights, normal. Being done now for years. And to the extent that we say, okay, well, this is how life is, you know, and this is how China operates in international affairs. More ominously, the complete dominance of the South China Sea, which has occurred without anybody pretty much saying anything, really, about it. In the last several years, many of you here may be aware of it. It's geographically not exactly in your neighborhood because you're a landlocked country, but this is of great strategic importance. China, without much fanfare, has incrementally occupied uninhabited little islands and atolls, some of which rise only on low tide, and say this is Chinese property. The implications of this are enormous because it means if this island is Chinese sovereign territory, it means you have a, exclusive economic zone of 200 miles around each of these little islands, which means the entirety of the South China Sea, according to Beijing, belongs to China. Is there any legal justification for this? Zero. None. None whatsoever. Probably some of you may be aware of the fact that the government of the Philippines took China to the International Court of Arbitration. China lost the case and said, well, but we disagree. Thank you. The court says this, but, we have a different interpretation of the law, so this ruling doesn't apply to us. Thank you very much. Next question. And we could go on. The now normal maneuvers by China to blockade, that shows the ability to blockade the Straits of Taiwan. This has happened now several times. as a demonstration of force, which shows that China, in principle, has the technical ability to take over Taiwan. Whether militarily this is going to work or not, whether China really intends to do this or not, it's not, and when, it's not clear. What is clear, and let me bring this back to the general context of American policies, is that America, and I'll try to elaborate a little more as I move along, does not have the tools to counter these policies. And you say, oh, come on, are you crazy? America, the biggest economic power in the world, does not have the tools? The answer is yes. America does not have the tools. It has many tools, but not the balance of forces has shifted dramatically. Just to give you just a little data point, the United States Navy, once unsurpassed, the jewel of the oceans, 296 vessels. Chinese Navy, 350. China has 11 shipyards that make both Navy ships and merchant marine ships. The United States has 2. One Chinese shipyard has more capacity than the entire US capacity. Okay, these are data points. With that, again, I don't want to give catastrophic pictures, but I think they're illustrative of some of the many misperceptions that do exist. The United States remains the biggest economic power in the world, but due to issues which are primarily of domestic politics nature, the ability of the United States to continue spending significant amounts of national wealth on defense is extremely curtailed. The last time there was a major defense buildup was during Ronald Reagan, in the days in which he came back and says the Soviets are too strong, we need peace from strength, and he managed to increase the defense budget to the point that it was about 6 to 7% of GDP for 1 year. We're now at 3%, the lowest percentage in modern history, okay? This is where America is. And you say, but come on, that's almost $1 trillion a year. Are you telling me that's not enough? Well, it is not enough, and for reasons that I think will be, take my word for this, please allow me to say that, because I don't have enough time to elaborate in all the details. But what is really important, and I think it's to this audience, and given the presentation that preceded me, is what is now, what can we expect in this Trump 2.0 administration to be the American approach towards Asia, and particularly in the bilateral US-China relations. I wish I could tell you something really significant and illuminating. I really cannot. Does the Trump administration, at the moment, has it elaborated a China policy? The answer is no. There's nothing there. And when I say nothing, I really mean nothing, except for trade. But trade, which has been the obsession of Mr. Trump during also his first term, the idea is big trade imbalance is always the indication that something untoward is going on. But he has applied this vision, whether it's trade with Japan, trade with Germany, trade with the European Union, trade with Brazil, and trade with South Africa, and trade with China. Same thing. Any imbalance in the trade relations between America and another country is bad and needs to be rebalanced. As you know, the tariff issue has dominated the media for months since the, what is it called, the Independence Declaration, whatever that was, Liberty, whatever he called it, on April 2nd. And we're still talking about it because we don't know much in terms of the details of how this is going to be articulated. And certainly, regarding China, at some point we had 156% tariffs, which if this were enforced, it would be a trade embargo, because nobody is going to trade with 156 tariff. So that is still very much the focus. But when it comes to the attempt of framing the relationship with China, which is adversarial, in the context of a larger American-Asia policy, there isn't much to talk about. Let me just step back for 1 second, if I may. I'm aware the time is limited. America, unfortunately, like other countries in the West too, created the fantasy that after 1989, or 1990, the world had changed radically. Of course, the Soviet Union disappeared, that's a fact. But the idea was that it was inevitable for everybody, including China, to recognize that communism was over. It's finished. It's bankrupt. It doesn't work. Everybody knows it. And the Chinese will soon come to recognize it, like everybody else. Like the Russians did, the East Europeans did, etc. Well, we were totally wrong. The Chinese have not given up communism at all. And by that, I mean an autocratic, centralized notion of power. The Communist Party of China is faithful to the old Bolshevik model in one obvious sense. It works very well when you have a very small, technocratic, cohesive, disciplined, small group of people controlling everything. That's Bolshevism, okay? And the Chinese Communist Party is still very much a Bolshevik party. Hasn't changed anything at all. In 1989, June, Tiananmen massacres, in Washington, people said, oh my God, look, something doesn't work according to plan here. There was this nice people in Tiananmen, these young people in China who were protesting and asking for democracy and freedom, and it looked like maybe something was going to happen. And then there was this major repression. They killed everybody, they sent tanks in the streets. Something didn't go according to plan. But that was soon forgotten. And what came afterwards, and I'll skip many of the details, was the American essential support for China's entry into the WTO, the World Trade Organization. China doesn't have any of the prerequisites to be a member of the WTO. It is a state-run economy. It's not transparent. Its corporations don't operate according to minimum standards of openness and transparency. And yet, it enjoys the same rights as any other country, as most favored nation and what have you. That launched the Chinese government-led export boom, okay? Year 2000, 2001. And you know the rest of that story. So the issue of the trade imbalance is real. What Americans failed to perceive ever since was that the trade imbalance that China has with the United States is not an economic issue, it's a hegemony issue. The goal of China is not to have to create economic champions that conquer markets and make money and report to their shareholders that they're really doing very well. The idea is to displace the opposition. It's not about making money. The same applies to the Belt and Road initiative. China has built infrastructure all over Asia and elsewhere, and people say, "Oh, come on, these things don't make any sense." They lose money. This infrastructure is a boondoggles, but that's not the point. This is how you gain political control. Okay, right now, and I know my time is limited, America, it's like after Xi Jinping came to power, said, oh my God, we made a terrible mistake. We can't really get married here. Our fiancé does not meet my God, what a mistake that was. So what are we going to do here? And we don't know what we're going to do. That's the reality. And so Trump 2.0, I hope that there will be an enlightening new vision in which America can articulate its strategy. Very briefly, the Biden administration, which is considered a disaster for many reasons, et cetera, so much so that the Democrats lost the White House, did a couple of things. The relaunching of the Quad, okay, the quadrilateral initiative, tying together in an informal but no so informal arrangement, India, Japan, Australia, and the United States. This is China containment, quite clearly. And then the Angus initiative of connecting for military purpose, particularly for the objective of providing Australia with nuclear-powered submarines. So there's this agreement between the United States, Great Britain, and Australia. These are clearly China containment policies. Where are we going now as we are progressing? As I said, America is no longer the super military power that it used to be. It needs allies. It needs friends, including Mongolia, including Korea, including Japan, including Australia, including everybody, including, I would say, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, you name it. Does this administration, the Trump administration 2.0, which now it's in 7 months of existence, have the bandwidth to do all this? Yeah, I'll conclude. I don't know. That's the very most, I mean, my office is 200 meters from the White House. That's, I can say that should provide me, I don't know, maybe with some sniffing of the winds that come from the Rose Garden, and they say, okay, well, I hear what's going on. I know. I pass by the White House twice a day on my way to work and my way from work, and I wish I could say that gives me any special insights. It's nice to say it. Makes me feel more important, but no, that provides no insights, and I haven't seen anything so far that would indicate a vision. We know there are trade negotiations like with everybody else. We also know that China holds very powerful cards. As been already mentioned in the previous presentation, China has 95 and 90% of the processing of rare earth minerals in the world and other significant assets that restrict American choices. So, where are we going here? Unknown land. I'm afraid I wish I could say something more insightful and brilliant and to say, oh, this is what's going to happen, step 1, step 2, step 3. There's no such thing at the moment, except for some kind of compromise on trade issues. That's the best that we can have at the moment. Would it be necessary for the United States to continue engaging all the countries in the region, including, as your presentation very brilliantly explained, Mongolia? Yes, absolutely. That's what America should do. Will it? I don't know. Okay. And with this note of uncertainty, I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Paula. Of course, it's so curious for us, not only for Mongolian, all world just watching very seriously what's going on between our two giants, USA and our southern neighbor. Of course, we'll have some more time to discuss it or discussion time. Okay, may I just invite our latest speaker, Dr. Dolor Surundorj from National University of Mongolia. She will just give us a speech around valuing friendships and partnerships as an opposite odium in the new area of superpower competition. Dr. Dolor Surundorj, the floor is yours. Please try to keep your time.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'll really try to do my best to keep the time. So I'm such in a hurry, but thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate for being invited to this prestigious forum. So my presentation, oh yeah, I have this here. So this for this conference, I prepared a presentation under this title, and though it may sound more like utopic maybe, or optimistic, especially since I really attentively listened to the professor from the United States. So somehow I need to do more research in this. So my topic is valuing friendships and partnerships as opposed to odium in the new era of superpower competition. So as the professor from the States just said that the superpowers are really at war. Of course, technically they are not at the real war, but in many areas like the technology, especially since China is stealing and copying lots of technology from the States and from other countries, and its expansion from Asia to Africa, it is really a controversial issue. So actually my research interest is the US foreign policy, but this time I chose this topic. So I'm from this university and I teach at the Department of International Relations. So here I just very briefly, quickly mention the top 10 powerful countries in the world. It's just according to the international scholars and researchers. So in 2025, these 3 countries are really at kind of psychological, technical, and in different field war. So United States, Russia, and China, we all know that. So these 3 are the most powerful countries that consistently dominate new headlines, as we all know. And they preoccupy policymakers and shape global economic patterns. And the foreign policy and military budgets are really influencing, and the international community somehow trusts them. They want to trust them, but they mostly don't trust. I mean, I should say they fear them in some certain situations. So from the international relations scholars, although the United States is saying that it's not now the super powerful military country, but it is in many areas, it is still the top. So they, those countries are really ranked that they are the top most powerful countries out of 195 in the world in 2025. So USA, China, Russia, United Kingdom, Germany, South Korea, France, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Israel. So if we, those countries, these rankings of the top 10 most powerful countries, like they are compiled here by US researchers mostly. And when they compiled them when they listed them like this, they used the following methodology, mostly the GDP per capita, population, and the region. So if we can see them, there is only one country from America, the continent America, then 3 countries from Europe, and most of them, which are the 6 of them, are from Asia. That's why international affairs researchers and many scholars consider that Asia is becoming a really important region. That's why we are here today. And the region, I mean the whole continent, and especially if you can see from that slide, you see that China, Russia, South Korea, Japan, and of course the United States, they are in the Northeast Asia. So those region is really important. That's why their partnership and friendship is really, it is so important. So how are they then, what are their global standing and influence? So each country's power reflects its prowess in various aspects, of course, including economic, political influence, strengthened international alliances, military capability. So it continues to, if we look at the previous list, I don't have time to, of course, to tell about all of them. So that ranking is primarily based upon these 5 particular attributes, and those are, as the professor from the States just mentioned, that the leadership from each of those countries are really important. It really impacts. So leadership, then economical influence, political influence, strong international alliances, and a strong military. Those are the particular attributes that donate the country's power. So it is kind of, in some, it can be kind of changing now. So these 3 countries, particularly I chose them, they hold the attributes of a global great power in different, kind of differently. So during the last decade, it became increasingly apparent that these states compete for influence in broader regional areas of the world and the rules and norms that govern international relations. So China, specifically China, in this list, China ranks 2nd among the top most powerful countries in the world. So it is proposing different initiatives, like we all know that the Belt and Road Initiative, and China is really aiming to boost economic development and trade by connecting Asia with Africa and Europe via land and maritime networks. We all know that. So, but United States is still focused on really it is still leading in various sectors such as technology, finance, and entertainment, and of course in other areas. But US is the home to several leading tech companies. So those companies are really contributing to its strong position in the global economy. So it is still a country with the most powerful military and other economic strength. So from a Chinese perspective, the United States is the only superpower in this world that has the capacity to contain China's rise. It is just many countries still believe that, but China wants to gain official American recognition of its disputed territorial claims in some way which is not just. So, sorry, I'm reminded that I ran out of time, so I'm quickly. Actually, I sent my presentation before the deadline, but unfortunately it was not published in the booklet, so I'm sorry, but hopefully I will send it to the publishing. So, okay, there are many slides. So, yeah, those are obvious. So, what does no good or good to improve relationships with those countries then? What should they do? It's very controversial, of course, but those things really helps to that odium, hatred, I mean. Then this reconciling, compromising, support, especially support for multilateralism, peaceful participation, regional initiatives, those are really important to improve the partnerships and friendships between those superpowers. So let me conclude quickly. So my conclusion is, overall, developing friendly relations is essential for fostering a peaceful and prosperous international community, benefiting both individual countries and the global system as a whole. Valuing friendships and partnerships as opposed to odium is essential for the existence and presence of every country and nation. Sharing with others is what creates great civilizations. Effective leadership can drive economic growth, foster strong international relations, and enhance military capabilities. Leaders who command respect on the global stage can elevate their country's standing and power. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Doldorsura. First of all, I'm just say thank you for your time keeping attitude for saving some time for us. Okay, now of course, not me, but all panelists will share their own ideas about all four speakers. And first of all, I'll just invite Mrs. Girtot Namsratorch, the Institute of Security Studies. And as and others, all panelists have maximum 5 minutes. Please try to save us time.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for invite. It's a great honor to join today's discussion addressing the most pressing and interlinked dynamics of our time, the evolving relationship between the United States and China, and the strategic importance of genuine friendships and partnerships in an era increasingly defined by superpower rivalry. The presentations we will heard today offer a compelling juxtaposition, one outlining the escalating tensions, economic decoupling, and the technological confrontation between the world's two largest powers, and the other reminding us that amid this friction, the value of principled partnerships is more vital than ever. The United States relationships, as discussed, has shifted dramatically from cooperation to competition, from multilateralism to managed rivalry. Export controls are no longer just national security instruments. They've become bargaining chips. Alliances are tested, Supply chains are weaponized. Trust is fragile. At the same time, in this fragmented global environment, partnerships grounded in mutual respect, shared interests, and common values can serve as stabilizing forces, especially for small and middle powers, navigating between the gravitational pool of competent giants. These raises important questions for us, in my view, our friendships becoming transactional in the face of strategic expectancy? How do we distinguish between alliances of convenience and those of conviction? And the last one is, as power shifts reshape the global order, what role can value-based cooperation play in restoring balance, resilience, and trust? As a panelist, I believe our task is not only to examine these trends critically, but to explore how states, large and small, can assess as agency, defend sovereignty, and build partnerships that endure beyond short-term calculus. Sorry. If you have time, I look forward to rich and thought-provoking exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gertot. And of course, it was really brief and also complete comments about all for speakers. And now we are going to have two more panels from our host organization, Hankook University of Foreign Studies. Firstly, I'm just inviting Dr. Lee. Please,
thank you, Mr. for interpretation who I am. This is Lee Jae-seung. So my research agenda is usually U.S.-China relations, and the international relations of the East Asia. So I usually specialize on the Mr. President's presentation on the contextualize how the U.S.-China engagement is going on. Also, two presenters and another Madam Doctor interpreted well-positioned, and including the Mongolia's perception on the diplomatically. I've learned a lot Mongolia's thinking it is. Especially, I want to just talk about the U.S.-China relations on the Mr. President touched it. Since the Trump administration, he initiated a trade war against China. The order was usually designed by the United States, but President Trump initiated the order is changed. The world has changed. I can understand Republicans' thinking, but the Democratic Party's thinking is a little bit different. They usually engage in relations with China. For example, the Biden administration, he initiated lots of multilateral institutions, such as Quad and trilateral cooperation between US, Japan, and Korea, and trilateral security dialogue, US, Japan, and Australia, and the US, Japan, Philippines as well. It means at least Biden administration bilaterally try to engage with China. For example, Secretary Blinken touched it into 2 years ago in the Senate Foreign Affairs Commissions. So he mentioned the point is the U.S.-China bilateral trade is strikingly peaked. It means the Secretary Blinken mentions at that time we are ready to supposed to relations with China, diversifying and de-risking. That point is de-risking and not decoupling. In bilateral relations, at least the U.S. acts as China, and at least kindly. Right after that, Secretary Blinken, Secretary Raimondo, and Secretary Yellen, even though the passed away, the Dr. Kissinger visited for the relations back then, U.S. and China. But now after that, it's the Trump administration thinking is different. Secretary Rubio mentions the order is not just obsolete, it's weaponized against us. It means order is usually changed. The U.S., it's hard to decide, hard to dedicate what it is, but at least now the Trump administration is usually focused on against China, not with allies and partners, usually focused in bilateral. That's the key point of difference is Biden and Trump's thinking. Biden's thinking is, I will conclude, Biden's thinking is usually in bilaterally good, but multilaterally, confronted to China at least. But Trump thinking is bilaterally usually acts as the hawkish with tariff barriers, the 20, 300, 200%. But now it's engaged, but it's hard to expect the deal is oriented done. So at least hard to include, hard to conclude, and what the U.S. thinking, and how to China responses. But by the way, we can access the order has been changed a lot. The U.S. initiated initially. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. It's good to having 7 more minutes for us. And at last but not least, I'm inviting our third panelist, Dr. Kim.
Hello, I'm Won-Sung Kim at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. So before I start, so please give my humble response because I am studying economics, so really studying politics and Mongolia and other bilateral relations. So these 4 presentations provide for me a comprehensive view of Mongolia's strategic positioning in era of great power competitions. Together, they offer both theoretical framework and practical solutions as well, ranging from historical analysis to policy recommendations. Yeah, before I comment each presentations, my overall response or feedback would be, yeah, the presentations successfully demonstrate and teach me that Mongolian geographic disadvantage can become a strategic asset through skillful diplomacy and economic positioning. However, success depends on moving beyond a dependency, MCC, toward genuine partnership equity based on mutual interests rather than assistance relationship. Yeah, the first present by Dr. Bayagasalan. Yeah, the paper identifies Mongolia's fundamental challenges, how to maintain strategic autonomy when caught between 2 great powers, mirroring with South Korea. Simply, we call nutcracker. South Korea as well, between Russia, US, Japan, and China. So we share similar challenges in geographically. Yeah, my first questions I'm also thinking about this as Korean, the feasibility questions. The present, they advocate for diversifications away from US-centric policy, but ignores Mongolia's harsh economic reality with 90% of exports going to China and being landlocked between 2 neighbors. How realistic is true diversifications? So as an economist, I have to think about more realistic approaches about today's forum. So when we back to after World War II, South Korea is one of the poorest countries. We have to start to make cooling water, like we export like wheat, textiles, the sugars, like that. So what we did is what we can do. So historical parallel, the South Korea transformation from the research pro economy to a global industrial powerhouse demonstrates the power of systematic value additions. The secondly, Bayam Bakand, thank you for this comprehensive analysis of evolving the US-Mongolia partnership. This paper provides valuable insights, particularly regarding the critical minerals corporations and the concrete mechanism of bilateral engagement. Yeah, the paper emphasizes on necessity of balanced diplomacy, like Korea, which has historically navigated, as I said, nutcracker between great power. Mongolia faces the delicate challenges of ensuring that its deepening engagement with the United States and other third neighbors does not provoke exceed backlash from neighbors. Then the third, Dr. Paulo, he wonderfully said, I don't know. Yeah, maybe today's solution we don't know, but for this comprehensive analysis of the evolving US-China strategic competitions, so his perspective provides valuable context of understanding how we arrived at the current moment of great power rivalry. Then last, Dr. Dorj, yeah. So he presentation on the importance of cooperation over confrontations. Your message about valuing partnership is timely. Yeah, when I hear her presentation, the one thing pops into my mind is the different perspective is perhaps recently occur in Mongolia has MCC occasions. So perhaps instead of seeking the friendship between great powers, we should focus on managing competitions responsibly in inner the Mongolian countries. The small states like South Korea, Mongolia might benefit from predictable competitions than from unstable great powers partnership that could shift overnight. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for your brief and completed comments regarding all four speakers. As a moderator, organizers just given us only 10 minutes walk to dinner venue. So I'm not sure, do we have 5 or 6 minutes to having 1 or 2 participants who is just sitting here and since all of this time? Maybe if someone likes to have in at least 1 or 2 scholars who is just sit with us in this auditorium, then you could just share. Otherwise, as an organizers just recommended me to just save time to walk.
So let me take the mic, please.
So thank you, Mr. Director. So the reason why I'm here is that we have 1 hour left for the dinner. So, well, when it comes to the first session, well, we could not give a mic to the floor. And when it comes to also the second session, we could not give the mic to the floor. So if you have any questions regarding the presentation made at the first session and the second session, feel free to raise your hand and ask questions, and we can. And also, when it comes to the first session speakers, well, you couldn't have the chance of answering the questions raised by the panelists. So I'd like to give you some minutes for answering or summarizing your presentation and comments raised by the floor. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. If you don't have any questions, I'll give the mic to the speakers of the first panel and the second panel for answering the comments made by the panelists and wrap up the session. Please. Yeah, so you can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Paolo.
I appreciate the time is limited, but if there is additional time, I just wanted to add something to my compressed presentation, which I think is really important. When I said before, where is the Trump administration going on U.S.-China policies? And I said, quite frankly, we don't really know, because it hasn't been articulated. However, if it is of any use to you, it is important that you understand that, at least at the level of experts, there are basically two different schools of thought in America regarding China. One, which actually would be mildly reassuring, saying no worries about China. It's all a disaster. China is about to implode. China is facing enormous contradictions. And they cite the never resolved real estate bubble, which is not just about real estate. 30% of GDP in China is construction, and it's a complete disaster. They cite completely inefficient and money-losing state-owned enterprises, and they cite the catastrophe that is facing China regarding not just demographic decline, but demographic collapse. China is probably going to have half the population it has today in several years. And by the way, many demographers are quite sure that the official numbers of the China population are completely inflated. So that, again, and saying, okay, no worries. China, Xi Jinping, who some of my Chinese friends call, and I quote, the great accelerator, saying, oh, thanks to him, he's making so many mistakes that it's going to make our job very easy, because he's destroying China. So our job is done by him. Because that's one very positive and maybe some fantasy scenario. The other scenario is, oh my God, this is really not true at all. China, yes, it may have its problems, but it has enormous military power. It has invested hundreds of billions of dollars in creating leading positions in the technologies of the future. And it dominates the rare earth minerals, not just in terms of production, but processing capacity. It dominates solar panel productions. It will soon dominate, if it's not already doing it, electric vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, all those things that you cited, demographic decline, malinvestment, bad allocation of capital, that may very well be true. But it doesn't mean that this deprives China of tools to pursue hegemonic objectives. And so the more realistic approach is, yes, China is beset by huge problems, but those problems will manifest themselves, if we're lucky, 20, 30 years from now. So what are we going to do in the next 30 years? Just wait that nothing bad happens? And this is kind of the way that the experts at least are debating the issues. I would say, just to conclude, that if you look at the leading lights that are gravitating more towards Republican administrations and Democratic administration regarding China, they're surprisingly similar. There's if you look at Matt Pottinger, who used to run China policy in Trump 1.0, and Rosh Doshi, who had essentially his job under Biden, the positions are remarkably similar. So there's not an ideological divide between Democrats and Republicans on how we should deal with China. The problem is at the higher level. That is, the White House, who is making policy. And as I said earlier, and I stand by what I said, at the moment there is no clarity in terms of how Mr. Trump intends to elaborate U.S.-China policy beyond the trade issue, which is his major preoccupation. At the moment, we have not seen the evolving of a strategy. Under Biden, there was an effort at least to elaborate the contours of a China containment policy. Whether this will be continued under Trump or not, it's not clear to this date. So this is my additional, for context, commentary. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paolo. Pan Daguerre, I think that you have something to mention regarding Paolo's remarks, and would you?
I'm not sure. I guess, like from a standpoint of international relations, like theorists will say that we live in the international relations system is an anarchical system, but for a smaller country like Mongolia, it actually looks more like anarcho-tyranny, where sometimes the rules and norms are enforced and sometimes it's not, and like that. This was a thought that I was having as I was delivering the presentation today. But as with the policies, well, yes, it's been about 7 months. Much remains to be seen. But also I think the midterms are not that far away. I mean, effectively, when a U.S. president gets into office, he has about maybe even less than 2 years to actually actively shape his agenda. So the time is ticking, and then the Democrats will likely take the House or perhaps even the Senate, and then it'll be 2 years of infighting. Before that, if he gets to set his agenda with China, then we'll see what happens. But
okay, thank you. Yeah. So, well, Dr. Dolgurusran, well, you actually showed us the rank of the powerful countries in the world, but actually, as Korea, even though Korea is ranked at 5 at the slide, 6. We don't believe that we are ranked at 6. Yeah, and the problem is that, well, when it comes to the sentiment of Korean people, even though we are allocated as developed country, and even though our rank is 6, but we always feel we are a weak country, as we are surrounded by the 4 big powers. And quite, how can I put it? This is ironical, but even though our economy has developed a lot, and our per capita income and GDP is huge, but if you ask any one of Korean people on the street, do you think that your country is powerful or big? Nobody will say yes. And so, well, you just pointed out the relationship, well, the valuing friendship and partnership as opposed to odium, yeah, in the new era in superpower competition. So maybe you have your own opinion regarding the, well, U.S. policy and also the current situation, especially in Northeast Asia. And I believe that Mongolia wants to take initiative as a kind of mediator or equalizer in Northeast Asia, which connects between the Northeast Asia and Central Asia. So would you add some comments regarding this? Please use your microphone. Microphone, yeah.
Click.
So actually, when I was invited to this conference, I really had short time because although I'm a U.S. foreign policy scholar, I mean, not a researcher, that I'm a U.S. foreign policy researcher. There was another professor who was invited, but she had to go to the United States, so she just asked me to participate on behalf of her. So I had really little time to prepare. So maybe yeah, you're right. I agree with you. Maybe especially in when I was looking at some research, I didn't really have time to look at different resources. So I mostly used the U.S. News agency scholars' analysis and conclusions. So especially in that list, probably some rankings are not maybe. But it said that just according to them, that ranking that was the last resource I used.
So what I mean is that is just what I wanted to talk about is sentiment of Korean people, not exactly about the ranking. Yeah, regardless of the ranking, we feel that we are weak.
Okay, yeah. You're so humble.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Maria, please, yeah.
Yeah, okay, couple of remarks. First is I'm an economist, and I can do any rating I need. Actually, rating is nothing to my mind, because and maybe we need new metrics, like GDP is not perfect anymore. Any rating concerning measuring power is not perfect. It really depends on many things. That's why we as researchers should be in doubt of any system measuring anything, because I can invent an alternative system and I will have different results. And many researchers, many systems, and many results. It's always so. And concerning that a bit, how to say, provocative speech, yes, concerning that USA and China are in war. Yes, but this forum tries, I suppose, and that is the question, what can other countries, not the giants, do? Maybe more powerful or less powerful, doesn't matter, to what is the recipe and the way out, to grow something positive. When even US people say we are in war in China, and Mongolia is between Russia and China, and the US is also here, and what? So it was a great introduction to the forum, I suppose, because now we are here to try to find out what is the way.
Okay, thank you, Maria. So if I add something, Maria is Russian who works in Kazakhstan now. Okay, so, well, Dr. Kim Jin-young, would you add some comments to the, well, present situation? Use your microphone, please.
As an economist, I don't know actually what the political situation is going to, but I know that I understand that the increase in the level of economic development, or like measuring GDP, is really not different from income per capita. Actually, it's a kind of a question about the notion of sustainability and the welfare. So every medium is reporting that our country is developing with large volume of trade, but what about your wallet? Where is my money? So the important is the expenditure and the relative social status, something like that, should be very important to evaluate our life or quality of life. So we should consider these things of that. That's all.
So you raised your hand. Okay.
So in terms of the ranking of the countries, in terms of ranking of the countries, maybe South Korea is in 6th place because of its soft power. Maybe that's why you are here in the 6th place. And also there was a huge debate among the scholars that what determines the countries what makes countries as a superpower, like global power. So I think one of the determinants, one of the characteristics of the superpower is having nuclear weapons. That's why so many countries trying to have acquire nuclear weapon, including North Korea, and that standards maybe North Korea is superpower. But if you compare North Korea with economic might, and then North Korea is not so superpower country, but still it has military power and nuclear capability to reach out to even United States. So I think this kind of measurement is a kind of tricky. So in terms of the current international relations, it's a quite unpredictable situation that we have now. That's why so many smaller countries like Mongolia are trying to have more constructive foreign policy. For example, I think because we have this, Mongolian calendar, before NATAM, after NATAM. So before NATAM, Pakistan actually nominated Trump as a peace, Nobel Peace Laureate, because it's a kind of, I think, approach to kind of accommodate Trump transactional behavior of his, his personality. So many countries are doing something stupid because of this situation is so, unpredictable. Also, it's very difficult to accommodate that situation. So I think Mongolia should be also pursue something constructive foreign policy. So I assume I actually proposed it before the NATAM, because one of the race of the NATAM festival is horse racing. So I assume that Mongolia should pursue this horse diplomacy, because Trump, because of this, his behavior, and then his, and then his love of the wildlife, and then also his son, the oldest son, is kind of likes to travel a lot, and then he has a lot of influence on Trump, the current foreign policy. That's why this harsh diplomacy kind of these innovative approaches are needed for many small countries because of this transactional nature of this administration.
Thank you. I'm sure that Mongolia is trying to, propel a constructive foreign policy. For example, UBD, Ulaanbaatar dialogue, and other things can be highly evaluated. Thank you. It's only 5, but if you don't have any questions, okay. So, Wanda.
I think the metric of the ranking didn't really mention a soft power aspect, but I do think that in terms of soft power, Korea probably is just behind the United States because of the export of K-pop and K-dramas, Netflix. And also I think even with soft power, you also have to factor in the geographic proximity and cultural proximity. Whereas like Hollywood dominates like English-speaking and Western world in terms of culture. Korea dominates Asia in terms of culture. So soft power, like even if it's not factored into the ranking we've seen today, maybe there can be a separate kind of power ranking. And in my quick thinking, if I were to conceptualize it, South Korea, in terms of soft power, would be ranking second, maybe. Moreover, on what Mongolia is doing, is that going back to the UBD, I think, and you were a participant on the panel too, the scope and context of UBD is expanding, and we're actually including. At first, it was only a meeting within the region, so it was only a regional conference. But then it spilled out, and more people from different countries, different regions came. And now this year, actually, the conference formally held a panel session that actually includes a different session, the different region, like Central Asian and Northeast Asian cross-regional cooperation. So this kind of expansion and filling into the different gaps and different spaces is something that small and medium countries can do in each respective ways. But also what I think is that like India's non-alignment movement is something that can be given thought when it comes to the competition between great powers, and just not getting involved, or just minding our own business, and we're not going. Like, this is a very Mongolian foreign policy stance kind of way to look at it, because we're not taking sides, we're not getting involved in any other countries' mess. So maybe not getting involved in the mess is what small and medium countries do. And this is also a sentiment that was voiced by one of the participants in the UBD. He was from Switzerland, so coming from Switzerland, of course, a famously neutral country. Maybe we had kind of a matching wavelength happening over there, but maybe it's something that we can give it a thought again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as we discussed at the Ulaanbaatar dialogue, the formulating regional architecture in Northeast Asia, which can connect, especially in Mongolia, which can connect to the Central Asia and Northeast Asia, is crucial. And that's why the subtitle of the forum is that pursuing supranational solidarity amidst great power competition, by pursuing the roles of middle countries and small countries to contribute to the peace and sustainable development of the global society. And one announcement is that don't forget to bring this program book tomorrow if you join tomorrow's session. And after the session, you are cordially invited to dinner. We are prepared at certain restaurant. And I'd like to return my mic to Mr. Director to conclude this session, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jung Ho. Of course, it's a great honor to having just participate in this academic conference. And I don't have any long words about for these conclusions, because all of our speakers, as well as our panelists, very clearly just concluding and giving more comments regarding for the all topics which we have discussed in all noon. And also we are so grateful for organizers as well as National University of Mongolia to having an opportunity to just our conference held in this academic hall of Mongolian National University of Mongolia. And also I just try to say thank you everyone who has just joined us for this afternoon, for having with patience and very fruitful discussions regarding for all two sessions. And this is my conclusions as a moderator. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you soon in dinner as well as in for tomorrow's sessions. Thank you very much.